Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I heard about a rumored trade um, via Heavy.com. I'm not really sure if they're credible or not, but I've seen them a couple times, and I think the point is to take a look at the trade scenario rather than to call it a credible or a viable scenario that's going to take place or anything. So let's just look at this and then we'll react to it. Because it does allow us to get rid of Russell Westbrook's contract, and of course head toward sending him to Utah for a bunch of players. And so this is what it would look like. We would be, of course, sending out Russell Westbrook and THT, and we would be getting back, and also 2 picks. They want 2 picks in this situation. Mike Conley at 2 years, 22 million. Bogdanovich expiring deal at 19 million, and Beasley's 2-year deal at 15 million. That's garbage. That is absolute garbage. And the reason why I'm bringing this scenario to you, because I think it's absolutely realistic that Danny Ainge suggests we do something like this to relieve ourselves of the Russell Westbrook issue. This is the type of thing the market wants us to do. Everywhere we go with Russell Westbrook, they're going to try to do this to us. And this is the thing, like the salary matches are fine. Those players, I don't want those guys necessarily, but Malik Beasley and Bogdanovich are pretty good pieces to add. Conley, I don't have a whole lot of hope for Conley playing at that pay rate. That's just not good for us. Where he's at, I'm not really sure. You know, the last couple of years, I haven't been impressed with Mike Conley. So, with him being a smaller guard and that kind of not particularly athletic things of that nature, I'm not really certain that he's really going to add to our situation in a way that makes us a much better team. So, like I said, Bogdanovich 19 mil. I don't like that pay rate at all for 1 year Bogdanovich, but I do look at him as a very consistent scorer, someone who could stretch the floor, and that's a need of ours. And of course, Beasley, I would like to bring that on. I would like to acquire him 15 mil, 2 year. When you give him the right role, which we would definitely have as a shooter, he would immediately get the most out of him, like immediately. So I think that would be perfect for us. So I don't have a problem with 2 out of those 3 names, but I'm not giving up 2 picks for any reason in regards to getting rid of Russell Westbrook. That's not happening. I'm not willing to give up 2 picks and giving up Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving. So we definitely not going to do it for this deal here. And getting rid of THT, my thing with THT is this. I know he's played poorly. We saw him, have a rough go. That doesn't mean he's not a 23-year-old player who's not necessarily supposed to ascend in value going forward. There is a chance by the end of that contract, you're going to feel pretty good about him at $10 million. And want to re-sign him, or he's going to go get a payday that's bigger than that. So I don't know. It could very well go the other way. He can continue to struggle, and his value could plummet. But I just don't really see that coming. I think, as I said earlier in the video I made, he was in some very weird situations, and they're the only situations you've ever seen him in professionally. So when you get him out of those situations and put him in ones that fit him as a player, I think you're going to get a lot out of him. He's athletic. He has an ability to finish. I've seen him make, shots that are really impressive, step backs and things of that nature. He just tends to brick those too. So he just needs a lot of reps, a lot of coaching, and he just needs to be given an opportunity to grow in his own pace. And once that happens, his game is going to come around. I mean, his body is going to be able to get things done in a fast break and in various situations, and his skill set is that of somebody who looks to pass and he can do a lot for you, rebounding and things like that. So I'd imagine you're going to see a lot out of him. You got to understand, LeBron James is the person who really saw something in him, which is why he's here. I think the problem is what he saw in him was himself. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Bron fits next to Bron. You see what I'm saying? Because Bron's a non-shooter, so to speak. THT's a non-shooter, so to speak. So it's like, and they need the ball in their hands so they can create. So it's like, I don't think these type of players necessarily play well with one another. I don't think Luka and Bron necessarily play well with one another for that same reason. Because even though you would think they would be able to play off of one another, they're also taking away from one another in theory. And you can kind of see that if they're not stretching the floor. Well, Luka would probably stretch the floor, so it's probably not the same dynamic. But in terms of like having a player who doesn't shoot, yeah, that's kind of what you're getting out there. More of the same. It's kind of why Julius Randle's not a Laker now as well. It's because we knew him and Bron didn't fit. So I think once you get THT in a situation where you put the ball in his hands, I got a good mind to think that as he develops, he can turn into a playmaker. And if he turns into what I think he can be, which is a big point guard, look out. Look out. Now, I don't know if his ball handling is there, but the way that he plays the game, he wants the ball in his hands. But he's going to have to become a better decision maker in order for him to be an effective playmaker. So it's, like I said, it's a lot of coaching that has to go into his development. And I don't know where you slot him in because of how ball dominant he is and how far he needs to go to get his basketball IQ up to where it needs to be for him to handle the ball. See, that's the issue. It's like, he's not a good decision maker, but he needs the ball in his hands. So it's one of those situations where it's like until he gets to a point where he's worked out the different parts of his game that he needs to work out to where he can play off the ball a little better and things of that nature, he's really a hard player to kind of work into the equation in general. And I think the next team that he goes to, they're going to find that same problem will be the case. So I wonder where he fits in. It's like until he becomes a better decision maker and a better overall consistent scorer, he's just going to kind of slot all over the place. He doesn't play well off the ball. So that's it. That's all there is to it. Lakers are going to not have that role for him next year, obviously. So we need to see if we can find a place for him to go. And I think that's part of what's worked into the price there, which is another reason why you're probably giving up another pick. It's because they look at that as a salary dump. But I don't let Danny do that to me. Do you know why? Because Danny has the role for THT. He could put the ball in THT's hands and effectively turn him into a much more valuable player for himself than we were able to make him for us. And because I know that, I'm making him pay for it. So that's how I'm price tagging THT. See, I don't know how other people negotiate, but I negotiate that way too. Just because his value look funny over here, it's not necessarily something I'm not going to work into the equation as it pertains to the player you're inheriting. You have a perfect fit for him, which means it's so much better for you. So you're going to definitely pay for that, buddy. At any rate, yeah. That is how I look at the situation. There's no way I'm doing any deal with the Utah Jazz. I wouldn't. Not in this climate. We've already talked about this many times over the last several days. And this is probably why I decided to make this video, because it's yet again another example of why you don't. He's going to fleece you. It's just going to happen. And so, with that being said, I think the Lakers should hold on to what they have and wait for the Kyrie Irving situation. If you're going to throw in both picks, make sure you're doing a deal that involves you bringing back something substantial. Kyrie Irving and much more. Something that will land you a first-round pick later on if you're giving one up. So, none of that stuff. Conley's contract, they know that it's not going to help us like that. Bogdanovich, absolutely not. Beasley's not going to get you a first-rounder. Together, they're not supposed to get you no first-rounder. So, therefore, no. We're not going to be doing that. Overpaying for a salary dump. Absolutely not. So, that is pretty much what I see there. We will await other deal scenarios and we'll assess those as they come. I don't know if anything will open up for Russell Westbrook if a team decides to go in a different direction and maybe make a big trade to blow their situation up. Maybe then they would be looking to try to bring him in to, I don't know, create a cap space situation for themselves. But even so, they're going to want us to take back contracts that are no good in this process. So, you look up and say, okay, which cluster of players do you like? Well, I'm like, if I'm to answer that question, like as I said, give me Beasley from Utah, and then I'm looking elsewhere for another value pick player like that. I'm not going to take all of those players from the same place. That's how you handle that. If you're the Lakers, you involve other teams and you find different players that fit what it is that you want rather than just taking a bunch of dudes that have a bunch of funny contracts from one spot. No, no, no. If I'm taking these funny contracts, I want key roles players that I know for the next 2 or 3 years can be slotted in properly. So that's the strategy. Involve more teams, find those players. Not an easy job. Not an easy job. And most importantly, you're not going to do any of that because you're going to hold all of this until you know Kyrie Irving is officially off the table, for which I don't really know I can say he is. And I don't really know what the heck the Brooklyn Nets are doing. And I don't know if we're going to know anytime soon. So holding pattern continues. I don't expect any news at all. But, you know, the NBA tends to give us things when we least expect it, and it's Saturday, so today is as good as any day to provide a surprise trade of a huge amount. I don't know. So hopefully we can get something big. Anyway, that's pretty much what I got to say, man. My name is BDO44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.